the day I drove to pick up Willow. The usually aloof and distant heiress actually got into the back seat of my car, with a male colleague from the company. The two of them were all lovey-dovey, treating me like their chauffeur. At that moment, I knew this marriage was truly beyond saving. Chapter 1. That day, I drove to pick up Willow. When she got in the car, I froze for a moment. She didn't take the passenger seat. Instead, she got in the back, with another man. As if I were just their driver, the man gave me a polite smile and greeted me. "Good evening, President Wang." I looked at him, completely baffled, then shifted my gaze to Willow. She had her head down, on a call, unaware of the quiet storm brewing on my side. We were supposed to go to an auction together that evening. I'd been looking forward to the date, planning to bid on an antique jade pendant for her, but I never expected her to bring another man onto my car, just like that. Noticing I didn't respond, the man gave an awkward laugh and added, "President Wang, I'm Makoto, Miss Lu's new assistant." Makoto adjusted his glasses with one hand. His manners were refined, his demeanor cultured. He said, "I heard you're attending a private auction tonight. So I asked Miss Lu if I could come along for the experience. Don't worry, I promise I won't get in the way." My heart sank like a stone. I knew this cold, distant woman far too well. She's always been one to maintain boundaries, especially with men. We got married through a strategic alliance, a calculated, mutual choice. Some people say couples like us live separate lives after marriage. But once we were official, Willow would snuggle up to me, her eyes soft and sweet. And when we were close, her eyes would turn red with emotion. She used to say, "Hubby, once I married you, I became your wife. We're one. You can only be good to me." But today, something feels different. Chapter 2. But I'm not some pushover husband who swallows his anger. I'm George, someone who doesn't live by anyone's approval. Clenching my teeth, I snapped, "Get out of my car." I kicked him out, no mercy, no pretense. The man froze, stunned. He hadn't expected me to embarrass him on our first meeting. Maybe I sounded too harsh. Makoto suddenly looked lost, unsure whether to get out or stay. He stammered, I am sorry, President Wang. I don't quite understand." His voice trembled, anxious and confused, his eyes instinctively darting to Willow. Just then, Willow finished her call and looked our way. She realized I was angry. A flicker of displeasure crossed her face. She pressed her lips together and said nothing, pretending not to hear, quietly fastening her seatbelt. One pretended to be clueless and refused to get out. The other acted deaf and chose silence. I was about to explode. I shouted, "What? You two think I'm your driver now? You don't understand plain English." The atmosphere inside the car dropped to freezing. The man was so frightened he didn't dare speak again. Willow frowned slightly and gently tried to calm me down. "If you're not in a good mood today, maybe we should just go home." In the rearview mirror, I saw the embarrassment on Makoto's face. I was so fed up I got out of the car, walked to his side, and yanked open the door. I said coldly, "Makoto, right, I'm not in the mood for auctions or pointless talk. I'll say it one last time, get out. Don't make me drag you out myself." Makoto clenched his jaw and turned to Willow, but she didn't say a word, just pouted and scrolled through her phone like she was sulking. Defeated, the man had no choice but to get out of the car, looking crushed. Willow would never embarrass me in front of outsiders. She's always been good at controlling her emotions. So when she said we should go home, I understood. That was our long-standing unspoken rule. If there's a problem, we deal with it at home. Willow leaned on my arm and said, "Makoto just graduated college. He's new to the real world. Why take it out on him? He didn't mean to treat you like a chauffeur just by sitting in the back." I replied blankly, "This is the first time." Willow blinked. "The first time for what?" I said, "All these years. This is the first time I've seen you get that close to another man. You say he's just young and clueless sitting in the back seat. Then why were you sitting back there with him?" That's when Willow finally realized what I was really upset about. Everyone in our circle knows how incredible Willow is. She's had countless admirers, but she always kept herself clean. And before me, she never dated anyone. Willow gave a soft smile and shook my arm playfully. Didn't think I'd ever see my husband jealous. Then she tiptoed up to kiss me, apologizing in a coy, gentle tone. "I'm sorry, it really was my oversight. But he's just a colleague, nothing more. And nothing will ever happen between us." She looked up at me, her gaze sincere and steady, as she made her promise. Chapter 3. I'm not stupid. Even though I've only met Makoto once, I could tell, this guy definitely has feelings for Willow. I thought giving him a hard time the first time we met would be enough. But the next day, I found out the jade pendant I'd secretly bid on through an agent at the auction had ended up in Makoto's hands. David, Lu Corporation's executive assistant, sent me a photo along with a screenshot from WeChat. In the photo, the antique jade pendant was resting in Makoto's palm. He wasn't just holding it, he was flaunting it. His eyes were cold, but his lips carried a smug little smile. That expression, it screamed satisfaction, the kind of glee you get after revenge. Clearly, after the humiliation he suffered yesterday, someone had decided to make it up to him. The WeChat screenshot showed a post from Makoto's Moments feed. Thanks to Big Sis Willow for the soul-soothing wisdom. She told me, if you work hard enough, what's meant for you will come. Time to stay strong and win myself a rich, classy goddess and reach the top of life. Yes ma'am, my lady boss. Followed by a string of muscle flex emojis. In that moment, I swear I could feel my blood turning to ice, as much as I hated to admit it. He'd pissed me off, successfully. It felt like someone had cracked a precious jade I cherished. The feeling was disgusting and strange. For a second, I actually wanted to hop into my Lamborghini and drive straight to him. Just to slap him across the face, twice, but when I looked at my own hands, I realized how cheap it'd be to get worked up over some low-level nobody. So instead, I called Alex, the guy who sold the jade. Alex sounded ecstatic on the other end of the line. He practically swore an oath. President Wong, don't you worry. Even if I have to dig out the whole damn Kunlun mountain, I'll find you enough jade. I'll send everything to you today. That very same day. Before work even ended. Every single employee at Lu Corporation's headquarters, except Makoto, received a lavish gift from me, a jade pendant worth 200,000 yuan. Men got guanine, women got Buddha. 46 people in total. It wasn't as rare as the antique piece from the auction. But what mattered was equality. Everyone got a share. David handled it all with expert finesse. As expected, once they received their gifts, everyone posted WeChat moments with captions like, "Thanks to President Wong for the chicken soup for the soul. He says that making the right choice is more important than just working hard. I'm clenching my fists, ready to strike down the corporate slaves and stomp on those who glorify self-sacrifice. At your command, my honorable godfather." Again, with a flood of emoji fists. Of course, people were happy to play along. A few secretaries and executive office staff, always the heart of company gossip, were grinning ear to ear, posting stories and pics with their new jade bling. Some clever ones even added their own spicy touch to the captions. As long as the medical bills are covered, I'll fight wherever President Wong points. Secretaries and assistants might not have much real power in the company, but their word-of-mouth influence, absolutely terrifying. In less than half an hour, everyone in the company knew that President Wong had just gifted 200,000 yuan worth of jade to everyone. Everyone, except Makoto. As for the reason, the office gossip machines were already spinning at full speed. Two colleagues sitting next to Makoto glanced over at him and snickered meaningfully. Makoto's face turned ghostly pale. He was practically squirming in his seat. He looked like he'd been publicly humiliated. Clutching the antique pendant tightly, he stood up and rushed off to the bathroom, with laughter trailing behind him like smoke. Acting on impulse, he ended up returning the pendant, untouched. Chapter 4. Willow had just finished a call with her father. When she turned around, she saw Makoto frowning as he handed the pendant back to her. She asked, puzzled, "What's wrong?" Makoto let out a long sigh. He shook his head, looking disappointed. "Miss Lu, you should return this," he said. "I really can't accept it." Willow didn't fully understand what was going on, but her instincts told her something had definitely happened. She didn't press him. She just stood quietly, watching him. Makoto hesitated, brows furrowed, then finally opened his mouth. He told her everything that had happened at the office that day. Every detail. "Miss Lu, I'm really sorry. I think I might have caused you trouble," Makoto said sincerely. "I just posted that status to motivate myself. I had no idea President Wong would see it." He looked deeply regretful. "I didn't expect him to get that angry," he said. Then, more seriously, "Miss Lu, I want to go apologize to President Wong in person. I want to explain it properly." Willow figured, someone in the company must have been gossiping again. There was nothing between her and Makoto. But some people just love to stir the pot, and now George had caught wind of it. "That's just too much," Willow muttered, frustrated. That evening, Willow came with Makoto. The man was clearly nervous, eyes darting everywhere but mine. Willow pressed her lips together and said, "Makoto wanted to come talk to you, clear the air face to face." She tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. "Honey, Makoto's just a colleague. I only gave him the pendant you got me because of what happened yesterday. It was just a gesture, to make peace with you, nothing more." I popped a few peanuts into my mouth and took a sip of baijiu. Makoto bowed deeply. "I'm sorry, President Wong," he said. He looked absolutely terrified, like he'd walked into a disciplinary hearing. "President Wong, please, don't take it the wrong way. It's my first time receiving something so valuable. I got excited and let it get to my head. If I did anything to upset you, just tell me, I'll fix it, I promise." I took another sip and said, "Makoto, right?" He nodded slowly, sneaking a glance at me, like a student waiting for a teacher's approval. Looking at this green little punk trying to act like he could square up with me, I couldn't help but find it hilarious. I said, "I'm not your teacher, and I'm not your boss. I don't have time to teach you how to behave, but Willow is my wife, so if I find out anyone's crossing the line with her, I won't let that slide. Got it?" Makoto clearly wasn't used to someone this direct. His face went pale with embarrassment. Willow grabbed my arm. "Honey, you're overthinking it. There's no way something like that would happen." She knew my personality, and what I was capable of, even if she didn't agree with how I handled things today. She understood where I was coming from. That's why she didn't argue. Instead, she let Makoto come and apologize. It was her way of lowering the tension, of asking me to let this go. We were both smart people. Sometimes, even just a look was enough to understand each other. "I get it," I said. I decided to give Willow a chance. After all, she really hadn't cheated, and the business ties between the Wong and Liu families were too deep. Divorce would cost far too much, but there won't be a next time, I added. Whoever it is, I won't tolerate it again. Chapter 5. You didn't have to deal with Makoto like that. Willow said as we were getting ready for bed. I replied. Even if I was wrong, you should have told me first, not made a decision on your own. I looked at her through the mirror, watching her comb her hair in front of the vanity. You knew that pendant was a gift from me, I said, and yet you gave it to someone else. Am I not justified in being angry? I didn't want to think about it. What if someone as beautiful as Willow was tainted? Would I still love her the same way? Willow finished with her hair and walked to the bar, pouring herself a glass of iced water. She pouted slightly. Makoto couldn't sleep all night because of your misunderstanding. This morning, he looked so worn out. So I just gave him the pendant to say sorry on your behalf. Not a single flaw in her explanation. I stared at her in silence, cold and calculating. The cost of that jade wasn't much to me, sure. It could be given away casually, but it wasn't about the money. It was about why him. And why apologize for me? Willow leaned her chin into her palm, tapping her cheek gently with her finger, waiting for me to respond. This was the first time we'd had emotional conflict over a third party. Our upbringing and sense of dignity had both left us exhausted by this sort of thing. We were people who cared about appearances. I frowned and said, Willow, I love you. She paused, her fingers stilling. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to say that. I love the part of you that's pure and untouched. I continued. That's what sets you apart from others. You used to be so firm about boundaries, always keeping a respectful distance from men. You had a sort of emotional cleanliness. And you wanted a clean marriage. As for me, you know what I was like. I wasn't always that kind of man, but your values changed me. That's why we've always shared the same vision for life. I paused. I hope your marriage never reaches a crossroads. I didn't, Willow whispered, her voice full of hurt. Willow was a smart woman. She understood what I meant. So she cut Makoto off completely. She was embarrassed. So she had her father transfer him to another department. And just like that, Makoto, once an intern with potential, was reduced to the most basic grunt work. He used to get opportunities to go on business runs with senior staff. Now, David didn't even put him on the schedule. I didn't ask anyone to mess with him, but things like this don't need instruction. People know how to kiss up and step down. Leaders made things hard for him. He got excluded from the workflow. In less than 2 weeks, Makoto couldn't take the pressure anymore. He looked exhausted and constantly made mistakes at work. The turning point came after a department meeting. That day, Makoto was publicly reprimanded for a mistake. One leader after another took turns tearing into him, not just criticizing his performance, but attacking his morals, his character. The tone was vicious, relentless. They didn't even give him room to breathe. The team leader sneered, waving a file folder. You see this line? For most people, it's the moral baseline. For you, that's like asking a saint to set the standard. Makoto kept his head down, quietly owning up to his mistake. His shoulders trembled slightly. It looked like he was nailed to the spot. And just then, Willow walked in. She'd come to the procurement department to pick up some files. The moment he saw her, Makoto grew visibly flustered. He rubbed his forehead, trying to mask the awkwardness, but Willow didn't move. She stood silently in the doorway, just watching him. In that moment, that gaze, coming from someone he admired, completely shattered his pride as a man. Miss Liu, he muttered. His face flushed red. There was no performance, no act. Willow had always been the son he could never reach. Now, broken and humiliated, he'd nearly given up on trying. And to have her witness his downfall, that was the final blow. He stood up suddenly, kicked over the chair, shoved past Willow, and stormed out the door. Half a month. That's all it took to turn the bright, confident Makoto into a shadow of himself. That night, Willow lost her temper for the first time since we got married. She stormed into the house, knocked over a glass on the table. It shattered, water spraying across the surface. She yelled, "Why won't you leave him alone? George, I've respected you. Loved you. I've tolerated again and again your insults and cruelty toward him. What do you get out of bullying someone weaker than you? And suddenly I remembered, back when Willow was studying abroad. Her younger brother, still in middle school, had committed suicide after being bullied at school. It was a scar that had never healed, a trauma she hated with every fiber of her being. She said, "George, you disgust me. If you keep treating people like this, I won't just stand by and watch anymore." I stood there in stunned silence, watching the woman in front of me, hysterical, screaming. For the first time since we got married, Willow lost control, because of another man. The feeling was awful, like shattered glass, like spilled water, that couldn't ever be gathered again. Chapter 6. Willow brought Makoto back despite David's objections, and even fired David without her father's consent. She confronted him head-on, saying, "We Liu family don't need a traitor like you. Who are you really working for?" David could be quite stubborn when it came to certain things. He replied, "First of all, I'm the president's assistant. You don't have the authority to fire me. Second, miss, I'm working for you. Some matters, I'll communicate privately with President Wang, but only personal matters." Willow slammed the duty roster down in front of him. "Oh really? That's your excuse? Then where was your so-called professional ethics when you abused your position to bully others?" David was stunned. He knew she'd found out how he made things hard for Makoto and couldn't hide his guilt. Willow saw right through him. "My father must have been blind to trust a petty, unethical man like you, using your role to sabotage colleagues. How do you still have the nerve to stay in Liu Group?" David walked out of the office, defeated. Several veteran employees outside looked somber. They asked, "David, are you really leaving?" David forced a faint smile. "Yeah, I'm leaving. Take care, guys. See you around in this crazy world." Chapter 7. Willow and I entered a Cold War, something that had never happened before. She moved into a hotel. Makoto, now her assistant, came by to pick up her clothes and cosmetics. Seriously, Willow gets so dramatic when she's mad. No one is safe. The housekeeper had already received a call and packed all of Willow's daily necessities for her. Makoto seemed to have been scared straight by me. He took the suitcase from the housekeeper and quietly left in a taxi. Before leaving, he said, "Miss Liu asked me to give you my number. She said if you ever need anything, feel free to contact me." I chuckled. "There's nothing to contact. Tell her to stay as far away from me as possible." Makoto couldn't understand how I could still act so tough even after Willow moved out. There was confusion in his eyes, but more than that, there was smug satisfaction. The housekeeper shook her head and tried to console me kindly. "Sir, maybe just swallow your pride and apologize. Bring her back home. You two never even argue. How did things get this bad all of a sudden?" She had worked with us for over a decade. After so much time together, there was definitely a bond. And Willow, she was probably waiting for me to admit I was wrong and go pick her up. Right? Ridiculous. Why should I apologize? Willow never came back. Makoto, on the other hand, was living it up, posting updates every day, and they were always about Willow, driving luxury cars to pick her up for work, posting private equity event invitations, photos with industry big shots. Basically, anything he could flaunt, he flaunted. Not a single chance wasted. Every post easily racked up over 100 likes. Someone even suggested in the comments that he start a live stream to show what high society life really looked like. A few mutual friends sent me screenshots of his posts with a simple question mark. One joked, "Want to know where Willow is these days? Just check his feed and you'll get a pretty good idea." We're all smart enough to read between the lines. No one said too much. Willow and I used to attend every event together. Even if I was tied up, my assistant would accompany her. Now, the one by her side was Makoto. I didn't have the energy to reply to my friends' well-meaning reminders. I just sent back a simple thanks emoji. At the time, I was privately working with Wang Group's finance and legal teams to start the asset division process. It was a massive and complex operation. Because of the marriage alliance, our two companies held shares in each other. And then there was the family trust one managed properties, precious metals, stocks, ships. The list was endless. Some overseas properties I couldn't even recall until I saw the deed and photos. Sorting through all of it was incredibly time-consuming. Chapter 8. That day, I got a call from Willow. She said, "Mom wants us to come over for dinner." I replied, "Okay." We acted like nothing had happened, business as usual. The driver picked Willow up from the airport first, then came to get me, and we headed to the Liu family house together. Willow and Makoto sat in the back again, leaving the front seat for me. Makoto's smug satisfaction was written all over his face. Honestly, the whole scene was almost comical. This time, though, I said nothing and calmly accepted the passenger seat. Willow rolled her eyes and turned to stare out the window. Makoto was as talkative as ever, but there was a new air of maturity about him. He smiled and said, "President Wang, We just got back from Manhattan today. Madam Lu wanted to see Willow, so I dropped by to bring some gifts and pay my respects. I didn't respond, just closed my eyes and leaned back in my seat. Makoto quickly realized he was being ignored. Willow pressed her lips into a thin line and remained silent the entire ride. Chapter 9. Madam Lu looked surprised when she saw Makoto. Makoto greeted her smoothly and introduced himself. He clearly had a knack for flattery. In just a few minutes, he had Madam Lu laughing heartily. At the dinner table, he chatted with her in a humorous tone, sharing some amusing stories from work. She smiled and nodded with satisfaction. Then she asked about Willow's life lately. Makoto naturally took over the conversation like he belonged there. The atmosphere at the table began to shift. Makoto, who had been talking so confidently, suddenly realized he'd crossed a line and fell silent. Awkwardly. At least he wasn't completely clueless. Talking about daily life, that's a topic reserved for spouses. Madam Lu wasn't a fool. Willow said nothing. I calmly wiped my mouth and said, "Mom, I have some news. You're about to have a grandson." Her eyes lit up as she looked at Willow and asked, "Really? Is that true, Willow?" It was huge news. She continued, "When did this happen?" The woman who had been giving me the cold shoulder ever since she got in the car now looked at me, shocked. I raised an eyebrow and said with a twisted grin, "Just found out yesterday. The doctor said the baby's already 3 weeks along." Madam Lu was overjoyed and rushed off to call Mr. Lu. Willow finally snapped back to reality and said, "George, what nonsense are you spouting? When was I ever pregnant? I've been out of town with Makoto this whole time, haven't I?" Madam Lu froze and looked between the two of us in confusion. I smiled. "I'm not making anything up. I really am having a son. Had a top OBGYN professor check everything. Mother and baby are both healthy." I emphasized the words, "I really am having a son." That's when Willow got it. It wasn't we who were having a child, it was me. I was having a son. It was a child born out of wedlock. She yelled, "George." Willow stared at me furiously, barely keeping her emotions in check, clearly waiting for an explanation. The more pissed she got, the more pleased I felt. I said, "Congratulate me, Willow. The Wang family finally has an heir." She snapped, "Don't joke like that. It's not funny." I placed the medical report I had prepared earlier on the table. I said, "Unfortunately, it's not a joke. While you and Makoto were off on your little honeymoon, I was bored, so I spent my nights with different girls." With every sentence, Willow's face darkened. I continued with a smile. "You know what? Young women really are something else. One of them got pregnant just like that. Not like some people, no matter how hard we tried." Her womb stayed quiet. The next second, she went ballistic, sweeping everything off the table in one wild motion. Dishes and glasses crashed to the floor. She screamed, "Shut your mouth." I ignored her rage. I asked, "Willow, how does it feel getting cheated on?" Chapter 10. Willow never expected it, that I would so brazenly announce to the world that I had a mistress, and that she was already pregnant. She bit her lip and said, "I never cheated on you." Her voice trembled, and her eyes turned red. Clearly, this news had hit her hard. She said, "It was always just work. There was never any boundary crossed. I never had an affair." I couldn't be bothered to listen to her excuses. I said, "Work? Huh? Makoto's been flaunting your cozy moments all over his feed. Are you blind? Or just pretending not to see it? Even our friends noticed something was off and warned me, and you still don't think that crossed a line? He's out there taking you to watch the moon and stars, so why can't I have a little philosophical pillow talk with some other women?" Willow, for once, actually cried, but I wasn't moved. If anything, I felt a little disappointed. I said, "What a pity, Willow. I should have brought one of those girls here and introduced her to your mom. Maybe then I'd match your level of provocation today." Willow couldn't process it. In her mind, she and Makoto were completely innocent. Their conversations were strictly work-related, and even those had become rare. She had only wanted to use Makoto to try and influence me, to soften me, make me less domineering. She had no idea how it had spiraled into this. Until this moment, she had truly believed her marriage was solid and happy. At the Lu family table, Makoto jumped in to defend himself. "President Wang, there's nothing going on between Willow and me. Madam Lu and I spoke on the phone a few times. I only took this opportunity to visit because it made work easier. To me, it was all just part of the job. You've never worked for someone else, so you don't know the grind. As her assistant, I have to cover everything. But between Miss Lu and me, there has never been even a hint of crossing the line." Makoto looked calm, like he had nothing to hide. I curled my lips into a smile. "Oh really? Since we're talking about covering everything, since the first day, you sat next to Willow, made me drive you two around, and even today, had me sit in the front seat again. Is that your idea of covering everything, or did you feed it all to the dogs?" I didn't hold back in exposing him. Makoto went silent, unable to respond, and I didn't let Willow off the hook either. I said. Speaking of assistants who cover everything, let's talk about David. Same role, right? Did he ever make your dad drive him around? Sit next to your mom? Did he ever take care of your mom at a hotel? You said your dad was blind for trusting David. Well, if that's blindness, then you must be brain damaged. Willow's breathing became ragged, her eyes starting to turn red at the corners. I said, let's get a divorce. Willow. Chapter 11. Willow followed me home. Makoto stayed behind at the Liu family house. Since the Cold War started, this was the first time she'd come back, but the home we once shared had already been mostly cleared out by me. Even the live-in housekeepers had been dismissed. Willow stopped in her tracks, stunned. This place we had lived in together for 3 years now felt completely unfamiliar. Only now did she realize I had been planning the divorce all along. Eyes red with disbelief, she clung tightly to my arm. George, I didn't cheat, she said. Her voice, soft and full of pain, rang in my ears. She said, let that woman get rid of the baby. Let's start over, please? I almost laughed. I shot back mockingly. Are you out of your mind? That's my son. Why would I have him aborted? My calmness seemed to stab her right in the heart. She pressed her lips together and said, I didn't do anything wrong, you know that. I yanked my arm out of her grip. Yeah, I know. You're still clean, but what good does that even do anymore? I continued. You had Makoto come to our house to pick up your things. You knew that would piss me off. You brought him to every public event. We both knew how that would look. You knew all of this. And still, you did it. You let him provoke me, humiliate me, push me until I had to give in. You said I was abusing my power. But Willow, did you ever stop to see how that so-called victim kept testing my limits? Over and over. I sighed, thinking back on everything, wondering how a marriage I thought was solid had crumbled so easily. I asked. You know he likes you, right? I warned you a long time ago. Willow, there's nothing more destructive than knowingly choosing to ignore the danger. Willow trembled, barely able to stand. Her voice was barely a whisper. She choked out, I'm sorry, honey. He reminds me of my little brother. I was scared you'd turn into someone I couldn't stand. She sobbed. I never had any feelings for him. Watching her cry like that, my heart felt nothing. Maybe she really was innocent, but I wasn't interested in continuing to invest in something where the risks clearly outweighed the returns. Chapter 12. Willow refused to agree to a divorce. She even went out drinking at a bar and almost got taken advantage of. When I got the call, I had no choice but to bring her home. She was drunk, but not rowdy, quiet, almost lifeless, letting me move her around without resistance. But just as I was about to leave, she grabbed the cuff of my sleeve, her eyes reddening, and pleaded softly. Honey, can we not get divorced? If you want to keep the baby, bring him home. I'm willing to be his mother. As for Makoto, big corporations have their own protocols and won't fire someone who hasn't done anything technically wrong. But Mr. Liu had clearly pushed him aside, isolating him. It was a clear signal to the outside world. This once promising young man, in just one night, had gone from the envy of everyone to the subject of private mockery. When Makoto came to find me, the confidence he once flaunted was completely gone. Gritting his teeth, he said, the day I joined the company, I saw you. That opening caught me off guard. He continued. I was the one serving you tea, standing by your side, waiting for your orders, but you just kept chatting with David and never once looked at me. His face twisted with bitterness as he sneered. People like you, trust fund babies. If it weren't for work, I'd never even be in the same room as you. And you just happened to be born into the right family and got to marry Willow. That night after the auction, I opened the car door for Miss Liu like a gentleman, shielded her head with my hand as she got in, and her nose brushed the back of my hand. My breath caught for a second. You know what she said? She said, thank you, Makoto, and gave me this gentle smile. I've remembered that smile ever since. Makoto seemed to be lost in the memory, basking in it. I waved the waiter over and ordered a coffee for him, too. My calm and indifferent response only made the red in his eyes deepen. His hatred burned hotter. Through gritted teeth, he said, what right do rich boys like you have to look down on people like me? Makoto stared at me, full of contempt. You don't even deserve Willow's love. I frowned and replied, oh really? Then did you ever get it? I stayed composed, watching him fall apart, so full of childish emotions, yet desperately trying to look mature. He said, isn't it because I was about to win her over? Otherwise, why would you suddenly crack and ask for a divorce? I replied slowly and clearly. Because I had an affair and got the woman pregnant. You knew that, didn't you? You. Makoto was practically choking on his own fury. His emotions were spiraling. He shouted. You think just because you have money, you're better than everyone else? Let's call it what it is. You're nothing but a spoiled brat who lives off daddy's money. You can't even keep it in your pants. A walking scandal. You really think Willow would want to stay with someone like you? The next second, smack, I slapped him hard across the face without hesitation. I said, "First of all, yes, being rich is a big deal. Second, whatever piece of trash you are, at least I can have kids. As for you, that's questionable. And third, that slap, I've wanted to give it to you for a long time, dumbass." Chapter 13. Under pressure from the Wong Group, Willow finally agreed to a peaceful divorce. Both families held shares in each other's companies, and the strategic partnerships had been mutually beneficial from the beginning. Our fathers saw no reason to alter that arrangement. The division of premarital assets was clear and uncontested. Neither of us raised any objections. Even our shared finances after marriage were neatly sorted out by me. Willow signed the papers calmly. She was like a white swan fallen from grace, her own wings broken by her own hands, blood staining what was once pure white. We divorced with dignity, and quietly said goodbye. After the child was born, as we'd agreed, I gave her a settlement, and she left. My mom kept pressing me about the baby's mother. I never told her. There was really no need. We each got what we wanted. Since it was a boy, my parents stopped nagging me about getting married. They decided to take advantage of their youth to help raise the child and mold him into the next generation heir. As the little guy grew, he began to look more and more like me. Freed from the bonds of marriage, I lived these past few years however I wanted. I dated a few young and beautiful women, but to be honest, aside from meeting certain needs, I never spent much time on them. I had no plans to get married again. If I had free time, I'd rather spend it talking with my brothers. David still fed me updates from time to time. Makoto didn't even last 6 months before he quit on his own. But in this industry, word travels fast. No major company would dare hire him now. Willow, over the past couple of years, had become increasingly withdrawn, refusing to engage with any men. Every year at the annual shareholders meeting, my dad would ask me to return home and step in for him. I knew what my parents were up to. It amused me, but I didn't bother exposing them. After each meeting, Willow would ask me to give her a ride home, saying she wanted to swing by and pay her respects to my parents for the new year. Luis Wong loved Willow. Whenever I wasn't around, he would secretly call her godmother. Willow never stopped him. She even snuck him snacks and treats all the time. During the new year, I stayed in the country with my family. Willow would just hang around our house, refusing to leave. One day, she asked if I ever thought about getting back together. I turned her down. Marriage meant nothing to me anymore. My career came first. If anyone ever got in the way of that, it was game over. Luis, though, he visibly lit up whenever he saw Willow. He insisted on sitting between us, yelling "Mom" on one side and "Dad" on the other. I smacked the back of his head and told him to stop yelling nonsense. Willow's eyes turned red, and she was at a loss for what to do. She had 1,000 "I'm sorry's" buried in her heart, but I didn't need them anymore.